Soften up the mess, drop it in the water, let the daughter find an image with the rest. She'll be learning how to breathe, spinning through identity, reveal another pretty little scheme. Save her mind, hold her hand, and don't believe a lie. You understand me. Walk her down the valley, pack a piece of heaven for the bottoms of her feet. Teach her how to jump and how to stretch when she reach, like the angels do, and you gon' make it through now. Tell about the healer, greater is the one within her, call him as the leader. Teach her how to hold a pretty hand up to the sky, and never wait upon the giver, he'll deliver like a dealer. To take her higher, higher. Fly out the valley and the fire. Take her higher, higher. Fly about the valley and the fire.
I started all of this because I wanted to experience a different life when I turned 30. I was outgrowing things and realizing that things were only satisfying temporarily. I expected more from myself. I wasn't happy with myself. Things just weren't feeling right. And I knew changes had to be made, and it became very clear nothing would change unless I did. And it was hard. I kept saying I would stop doing things and go right back to doing those things. And then I'd be so mad and hard on myself about making mistakes because I felt like I knew better. But I started understanding why I kept doing that. The more habits I cut out, the more alone time I got with myself. And the more alone time I had with myself, the more I began to notice just how uncomfortable I was with myself. It felt wrong and right all at the same time. I knew making certain changes it was just non-negotiable in order to have that different life experience I desired. And deep down inside, I really wanted to stop doing certain things anyways, because I was noticing that the results it was bringing me were just terrible. And it was about 2 to 3 years of a constant back and forth with self-sabotaging and setting and enforcing boundaries, until one day I got myself into a situation that I barely was able to get myself out of. Like, God got me out of that situation because I was about to repeat a multiple amount of cycles in one situation. And when I saw just how close I was to repeating cycles that I knew I did not want to go through again, it woke me up and I got serious. That's just what it took for me. And that's when my solitude season really began. And I just made the intention to cut out all distractions and focus on me. It was lonely, but only because I didn't know how to be alone and not feel lonely. I didn't know how to not be content and not have the urge to call somebody when I was by myself, even if it was just to talk on the phone. And I would pray at the same time, though, for God to just release any and everybody from my life that needed to go. I knew I needed to be alone and I needed to work on myself and heal in order to change and grow. And I couldn't do that with all the people around me distracting me from myself. The self-sabotaging started to look like holding on to people just to have someone there to talk to while I navigate all of this, but not realizing that that was keeping me stagnant too, because all I did was just talk. And when I would pray for God to release people, I assumed that I knew who the people would be that would be removed, but God released those that I thought would stay and put distance between me and everybody else naturally. I didn't realize how dependent I was on certain people and how much that was holding me back. I eventually got to a point where it was just me and my children and my mom, like on a daily basis. I was waking up, pouring into me, then my children, focusing on the task of the days, and finally ending it with my children, and then back to me before I went to sleep. Healing started taking place. Life got intense and stressful and painful, which made me want to lean on those even more for support that I was dependent on. But when God removed them, you know, I had no choice but to deal with me by myself. So soon healing did go from painful to peaceful. I started preferring my own company, being at home, journaling, meditating, singing, cooking, just chilling. I preferred doing what once seemed like a chore. Something I had to force myself to do became exactly what I wanted to do. And people would see me months later and say, okay, dang, have you had enough time yet to deal with whatever you're going through? That's offensive, but the answer would be no. And at that point, it wasn't even really about that anymore. I just rather go home to myself and enjoy my peace, the peace I've created and the peace I discovered within me, than cut up like we used to. But at some point, though, I did begin to feel like I was ready to come out of isolation. And I knew that that would require me to be social and maintain a certain level of discipline. And I didn't want to revert to my old self around familiar people. I wanted to show up and be my authentic self, the woman that I discovered within me. I knew it would be challenging. And I noticed that I started to avoid opportunities to do that. So I had to recognize that at some point, it wasn't so much about me choosing my own company over others, but my avoiding the inevitable. You see, it's easy to be your authentic self by yourself. The real question is, can you be you with people who have different expectations of you? Will you shine authentically amongst the world or portray yourself in a light that you know will be received? And this is where I am. This is what I'm currently navigating. And I'm taking it one step at a time, one person, one scenario, one challenge at a time. I feel like I'm doing great. I'm definitely doing the best I can. And I am grateful to be communicating with some old faces again. It's allowing me the opportunity to see how I used to conduct myself and measure how much I've grown based solely on how less tolerant I am in the present moment. And it feels good too to be able to say, nah, I'm good on that drink, or I don't smoke no more. It feels good to be different. It feels good to just be me. It feels good for it to be understood also without much explanation. Like, I am just on some other stuff right now. Although I'm still me, although we can still talk, I'm not acting funny. I just don't want to do some of the things we used to do anymore. That feels amazing. I'm not going to lie. And I'm learning that the people who are for me respect that. And the ones who are not for me feel uncomfortable, even just holding a conversation with me. But I have just been allowing them to remove themselves because I'm not shifting to older versions of myself to make them comfortable. That's what I'm not going to do. Now, someone asked me, how do you deal with being alone and not feeling lonely? And I could tell they really wanted to do the work, but they were just struggling with that first step, which is cutting out distractions, people who distract you from yourself. And I get feeling lonely and bored and bad if someone hits you up and you have to say no. So this video is for them and for anyone else who can relate. I just want to share how I dealt with knowing I need to isolate myself to work on myself, but I'm struggling at the same time because I feel lonely or I feel obligated or I'm bored or I'm just uncomfortable when I'm by myself doing nothing. So, how to deal with it? I only got 4 things. Number one, accept the fact that you are uncomfortable with yourself. You are avoiding yourself. Accept the fact that you don't like yourself. And that's why you want to be around someone else, because you don't want to be faced with you. You don't want to face with the disappointments, the anger, the guilt, the shame, the pain, the trauma. Other people can be a distraction from how you really feel about yourself. And more than likely, those types of people are miserable with themselves too, because misery loves company. So y'all can get together and live in oblivion and have a good old time. That's why they are so mad when you want to change for the better, because it's like, well, who will they have now to distract them from them? And when you're around them in escapism, you are not only avoiding yourself, you're becoming a fake version of yourself. You become anything other than your authentic self because you avoid the parts of you that you don't like. And in order to become your true authentic self, you must deal with the fact that you are not living the life you truly desire because you're unhappy with yourself, and that's hard. It's so much easier to not face yourself and not do the work required to change. It's hard to accept the fact that this person you've become, you are miserable and disgusted with, and you just don't like it. And people are not the only type of distractions you can have either, just FYI. But that's the reason, that's the real reason you feel lonely by yourself and you want to be around people, because it's uncomfortable. And it's harder to distract yourself from yourself when you're by yourself. On top of everything, y'all, we live in a society that promotes distractions. So it's just not an easy thing to do already. But you have to accept the fact that deep down inside, you don't like yourself, because if you did, you'd at the very least enjoy your own company. Now, after you have sat in that, you got to figure out why. Why don't you like yourself? What is it about you that you dislike? Why are you running away from yourself? When you begin answering those type of questions, you'll find out what you want to change about yourself, your life, and the people around you. The things that you do for a living, your whole daily lifestyle habits. This is not easy work. I remember doing all of this crying because I was finally facing the fact that I don't like my life and the way it has turned out, and the things I'm doing, I just don't like my life. I don't like how I'm distracting myself from me and how it's making me feel. I don't like that I'm feeling good temporarily, and then once things wear off, I'm even more disgusted and angry and mad at myself for doing things that I really didn't want to do in the first place. So I had to take note of why I didn't like myself so I could know what I wanted to change. These things are important because this is your reason. This is your why. This is your motive. And once you start doing the work, you'll realize you can't possibly do this when you're surrounded by distractions. So now it's time to change. Listen, it gets harder and harder and heavier and painful until it gets better. There's no secret remedy. There's no shortcut. You just got to grow through it. You have to start implementing changes and cutting out distractions and stop doing the things that make you hate yourself, because when you hate yourself, you sabotage yourself from living the life you truly desire. It's going to be a lot of back and forth in the beginning, but you have to stay committed to the process and devoted to your desires. And when you start making changes, the only way to deal with being alone and feeling lonely and just wanting people around so that you can feel better is to force yourself to be alone, anyways. That's where the work is. That's where the change is. That's where the growth is. That's where the discipline is. That's where the authenticity is. It's called inner work for a reason. And the best tip I could give you to make it through all of this is to work on your mindset and your perspective. Now, you are about to get real lonely, but don't think of it that way, because you're ridding yourself from stuff you don't even like anyways. You don't like those people. You still hanging around them because of some outworn loyalty you feel you have with them. You don't even like the person you become when you're around them. You don't like the version of yourself anymore when you do certain things because you've outgrown them. They just happen to be comfortable. That's all. The people in your environment prevent you from being your authentic self deep down inside, and you hate yourself for allowing it. So stop thinking of it with a lacking mindset. You ain't losing nothing or missing out on anything you don't really want. I came up with this quote one day in the midst of my own experience with this. And it goes, you aren't missing out on anything except for the things you want the most in life. I'm going to just let that sit. Because we be feeling like we missing out. But we ain't missing out on nothing. And the more we keep on fooling ourselves to thinking that we are missing out on something, what we're really missing out is what we want the most out of life. So remember, what is a distraction? Anything that distracts you from working on yourself, anything or anyone who brings out an older version of yourself that you don't like and you're trying to get away from, situations that cause you to self-sabotage yourself and be inconsistent, lifestyle habits that don't create a future that you desire. All of that stuff is a distraction from you operating as your authentic self. Also, remember that this will be hard and it will take time. You are literally breaking habits that you have carried on for the majority of your life. Breaking away from people that are probably your day ones. It is going to take for you to backslide multiple times for you to realize, okay, I really don't like this, even though I have allowed myself to get comfortable living my life this way. And I have to change and release these things. Eventually, you will get to a point too where you prefer your own company to the things that you used to do and the people you used to hang around. You will begin to prioritize your authentic self, but there's no easy way out of this work. It's going to get ugly and painful and dark, but in that you will find the light, I promise. And also remember that this is not a decision you will make and just stick with. It's called a journey of thyself for a reason. The gems are found in the navigation, not in the final destination. I am still in the journey, and I still have moments of loneliness or desiring companionship. But what has began to change is I am not sabotaging myself for it. I am so less likely to sabotage myself for it. I will be alone and deal with this temporary emotion of loneliness before I invite some chaos back into my life. I might get close to touching the fire, but baby, I ain't gonna burn myself. Not after I done did all this work. No, ain't no way. So I'm gonna leave you with this. Start to get to know yourself. Become your own best friend. Start to heal yourself. Cry, journal, feel your emotions, and let the inner work begin. And before you know it, you will be able to say that too. You'll be able to say, am less likely to sabotage myself just because I'm feeling lonely. Just felt a raindrop on my face. Look at my view. Look at the sky. Hey, other camera. Thank you, God, for today. Thank you for the sky. Thank you for the clouds. Thank you for the rain. Thank you for the ants crawling on me. Thank you for the content I created today. Thank you for this alone time I was able to give myself today. Thank you for these trees providing me shade and the delicious food that I was able to treat myself today. Thank you for the money to be able to just go and buy it. Thank you for my little picnic. Thank you for my books. Thank you for waking me up today. I'm just so grateful to be living this life. I love myself, and I love myself more and more each day. And I love being able to treat myself well. Thank you for today. Allow me to give myself a solo date. This was wonderful. I'm just so grateful. I'm happy. I'm full. Thank you for waking all my children up today. Thank you for keeping them safe at home while I'm out here taking care of me and working simultaneously. Thank you for this beautiful park. It's just so much to be grateful for. Thank you for my eyes. Thank you for my nose. Thank you for my 5 senses. Thank you for my hair. Thank you for my skin. Thank you for my mom still being here. And my brother and their house. And my apartment. Thank you for allowing me to be able to pay my rent every month. I just thank you. I just thank you.